This week on the Journal Editorial Report, immigration reform. A heated election year debate is raging within the Republican Party on how to secure the nation's borders while dealing with the 11 million people already here illegally. We'll look at the policies currently under consideration, from a guest worker program to a fence along the Rio Grande. Plus, what a hard line on immigration means for this year's midterm elections. Our panel tackles those topics and our weekly hits and misses. It all begins after the news.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Greg Jarrett. A massive French labor protest turns violent in Paris. More than 500,000 students and workers rallying against a new government law that they fear will erode job security. Now, the rioters tossing stones, balls, and other heavy objects at police. Supporters say the plan would boost employment among less privileged young people. 2 U.S. Navy warships exchanging deadly gunfire with suspected pirates out in the open seas. The Navy says fighting broke out after sailors spotted a 30-foot fishing boat towing smaller skiffs off the coast of Somalia. The U.S. Navy ships were on routine security patrol in the area when the suspected pirates suddenly opened fire. One suspect was killed, 5 others were wounded. The Navy says 12 people are now in custody. President Bush says more fighting and sacrifice will be required in Iraq. The president saying in his weekly radio address the, quote, horrific images from Iraq can overshadow the good news on progress there. Meantime, U.S. and Iraqi forces are rooting out terror in the Sunni heartland during day 3 of Operation Swarmer. That massive offensive has already netted dozens of suspects and weapons caches. A convicted sex offender accused of raping 2 teenage girls in a secret underground dungeon. He's expected in court any minute now. Investigators say 47-year-old Kenneth Hinson used a fake workbench to seal off the top of the dungeon. Police say they captured Hinson hiding out in the woods close to his home. He is charged with kidnapping, sexual assault, and assault and battery with intent to kill. Finally, riot police clashing with tens of thousands of young people in a massive binge drinking session in Spain. The crowds gathering in cities to protest Spain's crackdown on public drinking. Cops using batons and rubber bullets to try to control the bottle-throwing demonstrators. 50 people were injured, 70 others were arrested. Those are some of the top stories we're following. I'm Greg Jarrett. The Journal Report begins now.
Welcome to the Journal Editorial Report. I'm Paul Gigot. Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist announced this week that an immigration reform bill will be brought to the Senate floor later this month, forcing debate on an issue that has divided the Republican Party. At the center of the controversy is a Bush-backed guest worker program, a plan that has drawn fire from many of the president's congressional allies, but an idea that Western governors from both parties recently endorsed. Colorado Governor Bill Owens joins me now from Denver. Governor, welcome. Quick factual question. What percentage of your state's population is illegal, do you think?
You know, it's hard to say, but Colorado has about 4.5 million people, and we believe there's probably 250,000 people here illegally. The problem isn't just that number, though. It's a number that's starting to exponentially grow, and that's why it's more important than ever to solve this problem.
What would happen to the state's economy, Colorado economy, if suddenly you stopped getting those willing workers, because that's, I assume, why they're coming? Would the economy suffer?
Well, I think it would, but I also think, to be fair to the other side, that there's some significant costs because of some of these folks who are moving here illegally. And so what I'd like to see is a way to handle our worker needs legally and above the table and have them pay taxes, rather than have them underground with some of the problems that we're seeing through that illegality that sometimes they're forced into.
Well, I want to talk about that guest worker idea that you have, but first, one of your fellow Republicans in Colorado, Tom Tancredo, is stressing border enforcement, more police, a wall along the border, and maybe even deportation. Will that alone, do you think, solve this problem of illegal immigration?
No, that alone wouldn't, though that parts of that is a component of any successful attempt to reform the system. I do think we need to do a better job of protecting that border, because any legal system we set up, if people can avoid it by simply walking across the border, they will do so. But I don't believe that by itself is going to solve the problem. We do need to have a guest worker program that allows us to have people here legally to do the jobs that we simply don't have Americans able to undertake.
Well, does that mean that you would favor actually building a wall along the 2,000-mile Mexican border? And as Congressman Tancredo says, let's do Canada as well. Do you agree with that?
I wouldn't favor a wall along all 2,000 miles of that border. I think there are other ways to protect that border: electronic surveillance, sensors. There may be a need along certain parts of it for a wall. We've already seen small, in terms of miles, some walls put up, more to protect the Mexicans in terms of not allowing them as easily to get into situations where they're going to put themselves in danger. We need to defend the border, Paul, because any plan with that porous border isn't going to work. Then the second step, I believe, is to set up a legal way to bring in people who are willing to work here under our laws, and then finally keep all of that discussion separate from the question of citizenship, which has really bogged the debate down in so many different ways.
Well, you've been working with the Kriebel Foundation on an idea to bring in the private sector to help track workers here and make sure that we know who's here and who isn't. How would that work?
You know, Paul, we're all very concerned that any program would get tied down in federal bureaucracy. None of us are very optimistic that the federal government's really going to be able to set up a system to establish guest workers. So what the Kriebel Foundation, based here in Colorado, has proposed, something that I strongly support as well as many others around the country, is contract with the private sector to help us manage this guest worker program. We do this in other areas where the federal bureaucracy may set the rules, but we outsource it, we contract it with the private sector. I think that's something we should do here. Once we set up a guest worker program, once we start to defend that border, I think we could have a system that works well for the United States and helps our economy and helps protect us also in a time of significant homeland security challenge.
Well, Governor, you know, a lot of the critics of the guest worker program say that it's really a disguised form of amnesty, which is their word, which says because you're rewarding people who've behaved illegally, who are here illegally, and you're rewarding them with permanent residence. What's your response to that charge?
Well, my response is I think that confuses what we're actually trying to do with a guest worker program. First of all, I would require them to go through a background check. I would require them at some point during the guest worker program to return to their country of origin so that they could come back legally. And I would also not give them any place in line in terms of being a citizen. We need to separate guest worker as one track and one need for our country from citizenship, which we can define in terms of however we want to define it. By keeping the two separate, I think we can actually move to solve the problem.
Very quickly, would you recommend that President Bush veto any immigration reform bill that didn't contain some guest worker program?
You know, it depends on if we thought we could get guest worker later. I do believe we need a guest worker program complete with background check and with all of the transparency that we can have in a guest worker program. I also think we need to defend that border better. I'd prefer to see both done at the same time, and I'm sure the President has that preference as well.
Okay, thank you, Governor Bill Owens.
Thanks, Paul.
When we come back, from guest workers to the Great Wall, our panel will dissect the policies at the heart of the immigration debate.
I'm standing beside London icon Big Ben. Ben, some say you were named after the English heavyweight champion, Benjamin Kant. Can't answer that one, can you?
You're bonkers, mate.
Cheers! The clock's going to be a problem.
Go with those who know London. British Airways flights start at $199 each way with round-trip purchase, and hotels from $59. Booked by March 22nd at BA.com.
I should have done this a long time ago. Ready? Pull! Pull! No more credit card debt.
Get rid of your credit card debt, cash out equity, or lower your monthly payments with a flat fee home loan from Ditech.com. The total lender fee is only $395.
Now it's my turn.
They lost another loan to Ditech.
Log on to Ditech.com or call 1-800-71-FIXED.
Ask me.
Ask me. If I don't bring it up, you bring it up.
Let's not wait until you've lost any more bone.
Let's not wait till you break a bone.
You're a busy woman.
Osteoporosis is serious business because it can get worse. But bone loss can be reversed. Fosamax Plus D treats postmenopausal osteoporosis. It actually helps reverse bone loss. It helps prevent hip and spine fractures. Plus, it's got vitamin D.
You shouldn't use Fosamax Plus D if you have certain disorders of the esophagus.
You have to be able to stand or sit upright for 30 minutes. If you have severe kidney disease or low blood calcium, you shouldn't take Fosamax Plus D. It's not for vitamin D deficiency. Tell me about your stomach and digestive problems and your medications. Vitamins and supplements too.
Stop taking Fosamax Plus D and call me right away if you get heartburn or it gets worse, or swallowing becomes difficult or painful, or if you have chest pain. These could be signs of serious upper digestive problems. So call me. Make an appointment.
Give me a call. We'll talk about it. Ask me. Ask me about Fosamax Plus D. Bone loss can be reversed. Ask me.
Sent into the most hellish city on Earth to take down the world's most deadly terrorists. The fight for Fallujah made them heroes. This is their story. From the bravery and sacrifice to the families they left at home. It's a dramatic inside look you can't see anywhere else.
If they want to come, we'll bring it to them.
Sunday at 10, John Scott hosts an explosive 2-hour special, Company of Heroes.
During walking in parks, a little bit more boom boom.
America has always been a compassionate nation that values the newcomer and takes great pride in our immigrant heritage. Yet we're also a nation built on the rule of law. And those who enter the country illegally violate the law. The American people should not have to choose between a welcoming society and a lawful society. We can have both at the same time.
Welcome back. That was President Bush late last year reviving his proposal for a guest worker program that critics say is a form of amnesty. Joining the panel this week, National Review senior editor Ramesh Ponnuru, as well as Steve Moore and Jason Riley, both Wall Street Journal editorial board members. Ramesh, welcome.
Thank you.
It seems to me, at least, that over the last 20 years or so, Congress has passed bill after bill stressing enforcement on immigration control. Why should we think that a new one is going to work when we still have an immigration problem?
Well, Congress has, in fact, passed a lot of enforcement, and enforcement has really come in two types. There's enforcement at the border, which has really, especially over the last few years, been implemented, but as a lot of people point out, including you, that's not enough. What we haven't had is enforcement in the interior when people are hiring illegal immigrants, and that, because of business pressure, has largely not been enforced. The question with these new bills is, are they going to be enforced?
But are you saying that you would endorse more sanctions against employers, more prosecution of employers who might hire might hire illegal immigrants without really knowing that they're illegal?
Well, even if you take a step less than that, you know, if you were to do something like a few years ago, the Social Security Administration called a bunch of employers in Nebraska and pointed out that a lot of the people working there had fake Social Security numbers, and people started leaving. Business groups called their senators, called the governor of Nebraska. They forced Social Security to stop that enforcement. Even things like that we're not doing. We're not even talking about, you know, throwing businessmen in jail.
Steve, is that going to work?
Well, one of the problems with that is that it's very difficult for employers to know whether a worker is legal or illegal. And I do think, Ramesh, that any kind of card that you come up with, even if it has a biometric identifier, it's going to be very easily counterfeited, and the illegals are going to find ways around it. So I do think you have to have you do have to have enforcement, but you also have to have ways for the employers to hire the workers they need, and that's what's missing.
And all the enforcement in the world isn't going to solve the problem of the people already here illegally. I mean, you've got an estimated 11 million people in the country.
That's right.
And the problem isn't that they're here. I mean, our unemployment rate is below 5%, so they're obviously working. They're not, you know, they're filling jobs. They're not stealing jobs. But the problem is that they're here illegally, and we want to know who's in the country. And so the problem is dealing with those 11 million people. I mean, the security thing, I really think agreement could be reached on new security in the future. The real debate going on right now is what to do about the people here already illegally.
Yeah, you don't think it's practical to deport them, or do you? Like there's Tom Tancredo and some Republicans say we should do.
Sure. Well, I think part of the question here is what constitutes solving this problem. If the problem is that you have a large illegal population, the only way to solve that overnight, I think, is something like making them legal. I mean, it is absolutely true that you're not going to deport 11 million people. On the other hand, if you stepped up enforcement and if you did increase deportation, not deporting 11 million people, but deporting more than 50,000 people a year, while bringing the number that comes in to be less than 700,000 a year, maybe you can shrink that illegal population over time. You can have a strategy of attrition.
But you know what has people really concerned, I think, is this idea that the border is, quote, out of control. That's why I like the guest worker program idea. You let the migrant workers who come in and work in agriculture come in legally, and then you can actually have the Border Patrol people deal with terrorists and deal with criminals who come across the border. So it makes sense for the border.
And it's worked in the past. We had a Braceras program back in the 40s and 50s, cut down dramatically on the illegal population. Farm workers from Mexico could come into the country seasonally and go back home, and the INS arrests at the border went down dramatically from something like 1.1 million to 100,000.
Ramesh, let's take a break. To be continued. Next, the politics of immigration reform. Many members of Congress are talking tough this election year, but do they risk alienating Hispanic voters and business leaders? Our panel weighs in after this short break.
New from Flexitol, Hand Balm. Dermatologists recommended it nourishes and hydrates rough, itchy skin. The drier your skin, the harder it works. Prescribe Flexitol for yourself. It works.
People should be treated fairly. That's why eLoan has no lender fees. Find out how much home you can afford by getting pre-approved today. Those are some of the revolutionary ways we're changing the lending industry. eLoan. Radically simple.
What if we replaced everyone's chalky antacid with delicious Rolate soft chews? They've got the texture and taste antacid users prefer to Tums. Could we really replace everyone's antacid?
You just replaced mine.
Rolate soft chews, the taste that's preferred.
Good morning, Gary. I'm Jim's new Verizon wireless razor phone, and I am so thin and awesome. I come with VCast, so Jim can download music videos and movie trailers and sports clips.
I get it. Jim's cool.
Thank you.
There's the Razor, then there's the VCast Razor. Verizon Wireless has the latest in entertainment on the coolest phone. Buy one for $99, get a second one free.
Where's your phone?
My phone's at home.
Because it's lame.
Verizon Wireless, it's the network.
Right now, this Dell XPS multimedia powerhouse with Intel Vive technology featuring an Intel dual-core processor and a 19-inch flat panel can be yours for only $9.99. And for a limited time, qualified XPS customers pay no interest for 18 months. XPS, the ultimate Dell PC.
Book the vacation of your dreams. Call your travel agent or 1-800-SANDALS.
You're driving along. A car pulls in front of you. Another pulls alongside. And when the guy up front stops short, you rear end him. Just like he wanted. It's called a swoop and squat. And fraud like this can add hundreds of dollars a year to your insurance bills. It's why Allstate has a dedicated fraud team to track down criminals. Fighting fraud is just one of the ways Allstate helps keep your costs down. Another is accident forgiveness, and it starts the day you sign up. With accident forgiveness from Allstate, your rates won't go up just because of an accident, even if it's your fault. So you'll worry less about filing a claim. Does your current car insurance offer this protection?
Call toll-free 1-866-661-1300 for a free quote. Find out how with Allstate your rates don't have to go up just because of an accident. Why wait for your current policy to expire? Call now and switch. It's easy.
Are you in good hands?
Open borders are wrong. For America, no matter how good they are for the restaurant industry, the ski resorts, the U.S. Chamber, and Tyson's Foods.
That was Republican Congressman Tom Tancredo, an outspoken advocate of constructing a wall along the 2,000-mile Mexican border, an unpopular plan with certain key constituencies, including business groups. Jason, Congressman Tancredo says tough border enforcement is good politics, so the Republican base demands it. Is he right?
Well, let's look at how restrictionist Republican candidates have fared in recent history. In the midterm elections in 2004, out in Utah and Arizona, places where immigration is a very big deal, you had restrictionist candidates running against incumbents. They lost. Last year in California, in Orange County, 2 hours from the Mexico border, another big immigration district, a restrictionist candidate ran for an open seat and lost against a Republican candidate who ran on traditional Republican issues, small government, low taxes, and so forth. Back east in Virginia, you had a governor, Republican governor, gubernatorial candidate, who turned restrictionist, thinking it would rile up the base at the end of the campaign. He lost too. Tancredo and others insist that this is a good issue for Republicans, but the votes just never seem to materialize.
Ramesh?
Well, I mean, if you look at some of those campaigns that Jason was talking about, it's true, for instance, that the challenger to the incumbent in the Utah race didn't actually beat the incumbent. Beating an incumbent in a primary is very difficult. If not for the immigration issue, that guy wouldn't have gotten 42% of the vote. He would have gotten 0% of the vote. And I think you can make a very similar case about what happened in California. I think what all of the races that Jason is pointing to demonstrate is that a narrowly based candidacy that is entirely about being fired up about illegal immigration is not enough to get you over the finish line. But I do think that there is real popular discontent and opposition to illegal immigration could be part of a winning platform.
Well, Ramesh is right about that, but I worry a little bit about just the image of the Republican Party that they're portraying here. I mean, let's not forget that Ronald Reagan talked about America being a shining city on a hill, and Newt Gingrich, when the Republicans took over Congress, talked about a conservative opportunity society, which is what we want America to be. And I think if the only image of the Republicans is build a wall, then I think we're conflicting with those traditional ideas of the Republican Party.
And it goes back even further. I mean, the 20s and 30s, the Irish and Italian immigrants were alienated by the Republican Party. Asian immigrants in Hawaii after World War II were alienated. Hispanics in California in the 90s after Prop 187 were alienated. I don't see it as smart politics for the Republican Party to be alienating the fastest growing ethnic group in America.
Now, you're right about that. There's a real danger that a Tancredo-style politics that is focused on immigration will have those effects. I would only point out that there are dangers from the other kinds of approaches to immigration, too. For example, a lot of Republicans who aren't in the Tancredo camp and who are not as exercised about immigration as he is want to let in all of these temporary workers, but want to make it very hard for them to get citizenship. I think something like that could also be read as anti-immigrant and could have some of the same political.
Well, it would be good if Republicans were to promote, as well as being pro-immigrant, which I'd hope they would be, to be pro-assimilation, because I think that's one of the problems here is that Americans feel like the immigrants aren't assimilating. We need to restore and build up our traditional institutions of assimilation. One other thing that, we were talking about an identification card for workers. What about welfare? I mean, I think a lot of Americans could say, look, we want the immigrants who want to come in here and work. It's the ones who want to go on welfare are the ones we don't want to. So let's make it harder for the immigrants to get welfare, not harder for them to get work.
Ramesh, let me ask you quickly. We don't have a lot of time, but what do you think the prospects are this year for actually the Republicans passing immigration reform, or is this thing going to blow up?
I think it's going to blow up. I think it's very hard to get this Congress to pass anything that the president wants, and this is too politically sensitive, I think.
Right, I agree with you, but that may not be a bad thing. Wait until after the election. Thanks, Ramesh. We have to take one more break. When we come back, our hits and misses of the week.
Some things men don't want to talk about.
Like prostate problems. But I learned 1 in 3 men will have them. So I switched to One-A-Day Men's.
A complete multivitamin plus lycopene, which Harvard study suggests may help prostate health.
Some things aren't healthy to talk about.
One-A-Day Men's.
At Stouffer's, our lasagna is America's favorite for what we put in it. And now even more appreciated for what we don't. See what's cooking at Stouffer's.
There are always new races to be run, new challenges to be met. But success still comes from having a plan and the courage to follow it. And it's easier to reach your goals when you have talented people on your side. These principles are the keys to investment performance, today and tomorrow. Oppenheimer Funds, the right way to invest.
Carefully consider fund investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Call your advisor for a prospectus with this and other fund information. Read it carefully before investing.
Hi, Richard Thalheimer here to share with you reason number 4, Ionic Breeze is the most popular air purifier in America. It may really help you feel better during allergy season. It traps dust, pollen, pet dander, and now it has Ozone Guard to turn ozone into pure oxygen. I get hundreds of letters from people telling me how much better they feel with an Ionic Breeze. So please, let me send you an Ionic Breeze for your own 2-month home trial. I'll pay the shipping. If you don't feel better and sleep better, call me for a complete refund. I'll pay the shipping back. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose.
We all deserve to breathe fresh, clean air, especially in our homes. With the Sharper Image Clean Air Now campaign, you can. For the very first time, America's most trusted brand of air purifier is offering an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. The Ionic Breeze charges incoming air, so pollen, dust, dander, and other irritants attach to the collection grid. Then air passes through the new Ozone Guard grill coated with Premier Catalyst coating, recognized by the EPA as a newer way to reduce air pollution because it helps convert smog and ozone into pure oxygen. You have to move air to clean it, and the Ionic Breeze cleans and circulates air with no fans, no filters, silently. Order today and we'll give you a free $69 bathroom Ionic Breeze to keep small rooms fresher 24 hours a day. We'll even pay your shipping so you can use the Ionic Breeze risk-free for 2 months. If you decide to send it back for any reason, we'll pay that shipping too and keep the bathroom Ionic Breeze as our gift. But that's not all. For the first time ever, call right now to find out how you can get an additional Ionic Breeze Quadra for free. That's right, it is amazing. A free Ionic Breeze Quadra.
Call 1-800-870-2699. That's 1-800-870-2699.
Winners and losers, picks and pans, hits and misses. It's our way of calling attention to the best and the worst of the week. Item 1, the people millions of Americans go to for tax help have some tax troubles of their own. Steve?
Well, just in time for tax season, we find out that H&R Block, the company that does the taxes for millions of Americans, goofed on their tax bill, and they underpaid their taxes by $30 million each year. Now, I would submit to you, Paul, that if the one company in the United States that's supposed to understand the tax code can't figure it out, maybe finally it's time for a flat tax in America.
Amen, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. Thanks, Steve. Next, fewer people are smoking, but for South Carolina, that may be a bad thing, Jason?
Well, chalk this up to unintended consequences, but South Carolina is facing a budget shortfall because fewer people are smoking. And the reason is this deal that the states made with the tobacco companies back in 1998 to end lawsuits over health care costs due to smoking. Now, some of us at the time said that this was a bad deal for the states to make because it effectively made them partners with the tobacco industry in selling cigarettes. And sure enough, the states have become addicted to this money. Tobacco companies make annual payments to the states based on prior year's sales. So when those sales are down, state revenues are down, and states are in the very awkward position of wishing more people smoked.
Uncle Sam, a Marlboro man. Jason, thanks. And this week I have a hit of my own. This one to the Bush administration for finally agreeing to release the millions of documents, audio tapes, and computer disks it has captured in Iraq and Afghanistan. As we discussed last week on this program, the intelligence bureaucracy wanted to keep the material under wraps, despite pressure from Congress and apparently even from President Bush himself to get it all out in the open, where it can be inspected and interpreted. Director of National Intelligence John Negroponte finally gave in this week. So congratulations in particular to Congressman Pete Hoekstra and Senator Rick Santorum, who pushed this cause on Capitol Hill. Thanks to their efforts, we'll all learn more about the enemy we're fighting in the war on terror. That's it for this week's edition of the Journal Editorial Report. Thanks to Steve Moore, Jason Riley, and Ramesh Ponnuru. I'm Paul Gigot. Thank you all for watching. We hope to see you next week.